I'd like to welcome you to the 5 o'clock business meeting. We will now have the Pledge of Allegiance, and let me see. Mr. Garber, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
They look very nice. Mr. Garber, were there any actions taken in closed session to report?
No, Madam President.
Okay. May I have approval of the agenda, items to be pulled from the agenda or to be moved out of order?
I request number 4 to be,
You want to discuss number 4?
Yes,
The discussion? Okay, any other? Okay, may I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
With number 4 pulled.
I'll second that.
Okay, please vote. Okay, this is a time for public comment. Please come to the podium, give your name and address, and I ask you to please limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes. No one? Okay. We will now go with board member comments. Director Desert?
I'd just like to reiterate some comments I made last week in La Quinta about some concerns I'm hearing and having about the RA issue on the green energy transmission build-out, and also some concerns I'm hearing about the All-American Siphon project due to the Easter earthquake that we had last year.
Okay. Is that it? Director Menville?
I have no comments, thank you.
Director
No comments.
Hanks? Since Director Sanchez is not here, I will allow you to go one more time.
One more time. The general manager, Kevin, we've talked about a green energy generators letter of support with signatures from all the green energy generators. It was Director Sanchez's idea. I've mentioned it on at least 2 occasions. I think this is my 3rd occasion. We were going to try to get that put together before the trip to Sacramento with you and Stella going up there to address this RA issue. And now we're looking at the Green Energy Conference, or Energy Conference coming up. Are we going to get that done, or is that still urgent or required?
It's still outstanding, and we've got an item tonight later in the agenda to possibly form a renewable energy task force. And this would fit nicely into that, and we'll try to expedite it.
thank you.
Okay. Mr. Garber? Comments?
No comments.
Mr. Kelly, comments?
Yes, President Mendoza, I want to report that on Monday of last week, the board met in closed session to discuss storage generally. And on Monday, March 29th at 5 p.m., the board has scheduled a public workshop to discuss the storage options. It's been briefed on and that staff has been studying for some months, and we'll invite public comment at that time and vet that issue thoroughly. I have one other thing. I want to inform the board and the public that I've retained the help of a well-known water consultant named Tom Havens. That contract is still in the works, but we have agreed on terms. It's a modest contract for a limited time and a very precise purpose. He will be advising me on contingency planning and QSA related water issues. He'll be working directly for me, and my intent is to share his findings in the form of white papers and policy positions for the board to consider over the course of the next 6 months. That's all.
Okay, moving on to information. Item number 8 on page,
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
oh, we didn't,
Move, second.
oh, please vote. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 8, page 107, update on the Colorado River water issues. This is executive, Mr. King.
President Mendoza, members of the board, just give you a brief, quick update on a couple of things, or some things that are going on the Colorado River. First of all, I want to give you an update on the basin hydrology. We haven't had one of these reports in quite a while, but right now precipitation through from October 1st through February 28th, which is in the water year, is currently at 123% through the basin. The snowpack water equivalent, it's weighted at 121% of average. And the unregulated flow into Lake Powell through the April-July forecast is 9 million acre feet, and the water year forecast is going to be a little over 12.5, almost 12.6 million acre feet, which is 104% of capacity. So we got a decent runoff year, but it's only 4% above what we would like, which is considered normal, but it does help. The reservoirs, Lake Powell is setting at 13.2 million acre feet, and Lake Mead is setting at 11.1. That puts Lake Mead at 43% capacity and Lake Powell at 54. Our total system storage as of right now, which is Powell, Mead, and other reservoirs through the system, is at 31.9 million acre feet. Last year it was setting at 32.1, so the total system storage is down just a little bit, but we're setting at about 53% of total system storage. As far as consumptive use, off the Bureau's site, Nevada is projected to be at 0.28. Arizona is projected to be at 2.808, a little above their allotment, and California is projected to be at 4.092, which is 300,000 under our 4.4 allotment. So that's kind of give you an idea of where we sit on the water situation in the Colorado River at this point. Any questions?
Questions with the board?
I'll move on to the next topic.
On that one.
Go ahead. John, do you have something?
No, it's the next two I have some.
Yeah. I'd like to discuss a little bit, to give you there's some discussions that's going on related to the AAC, San Diego City capacity. They have 155 CFS of capacity in the All-American Canal from the dam all the way to the end of the West Side Main. They've had that. It was in the contracts when the canal was built since the 1930s. And they paid a construction cost of about, over the time, I think it was about $2.1 million back in the original days when the canal was built. And over that time, on a yearly basis, they have paid their share of the O&M based on that capacity reserve that's in that canal. San Diego would like to see someone else take over that capacity where they could get rid of that O&M charge. In the early 60s, they went back to Washington to try to get out of that contract. Excuse me, and they were told no, that they couldn't. So, but with the Imperial Dam electrical upgrade and the monies that they see being spent, they would like to get out of this contract where they wouldn't have to be spending money toward the future maintenance and higher dollar maintenance contracts. They've talked to all the agency. They've talked to Southern Nevada Water Authority. They've talked to MWD. They've talked to CAP. They've talked to IID. They talked to John Carter and I in Las Vegas. Stu Somack is their attorney. They talked to us in Las Vegas. And then there was a meeting 2 weeks ago, I believe. Wasn't last week, so it was the week before, in Las Vegas. And they had all the agencies I just mentioned, plus the Bureau of Reclamation they've also talked to. And basically, kind of what came out of that meeting is that the city of San Diego was looking to get legislation to get out of that capacity issue, and maybe that it could be used in the binational process as a tool to maybe let Mexico use that capacity, and I have concerns about that, and John Carter and I both, and I've talked to others that that capacity needs to stay within somebody's ownership within the United States. There's a reason it's called the All-American Canal. So those are going to be ongoing talks as we go, and I'll try to keep you abreast. Nothing's really concrete at this point other than San Diego would like to see someone take over that obligation. And one of the issues is the canal has silted off to a point that the total capacity of the canal is not there anymore. But there was no need to keep cleaning that on a year-to-year basis for a capacity that was never used. So that 155 CFS capacity cannot be guaranteed on a daily basis with our use included. So that's all being brought to the table as we talk and go through this process, and we'll definitely have talked to Kevin and kept him abreast of this, but I wanted to address the board where you knew that we had talks that were ongoing with this, and supposedly there will be some legislative language put together for all the entities, the Bureau, Southern Nevada, CAP, and IID to look at some point. And when we do that, of course, I'll be taking that to Jeff as our legal counsel along with Mr. Carter, and we'll be taking a look at that and getting back to the board. We're not sure where this is going to go.
President Mendoza, you'll recall in meetings with the commissioner in Washington, D.C. a week ago that this did come up. And it has been in the works for some time. It's been talked about at the binational level. It's now moved beyond that. It's a real project, and IID is going to have to deal with it.
Because there was other suggestions that Mexico intentionally created Mexican apportionment, ICMA, that they could store behind Lake Mead could be converted to ICS, which that means American entities then could take that ICS as theirs and for storage and so forth. But there's a component there that bothers me, and that's if it never comes back to the Mexico side, then there's a power issue that we need to deal with through Pilot Knob. And that would have to be a component of different things. And we've brought all of that to the table. And so discussions will be continuing, and we'll keep you abreast of what's going on. Any questions on that one?
Is the city of San Diego paying a yearly O&M on that capacity right now?
Yes, it's somewhere between $80,000 and $100,000, Carlos. I believe it's in the All-American Canal budget that's taken. They are part of the Imperial Dam Advisory Board. And so they also are in the approval of that budget as we move forward on a yearly basis. So they pay their share based on their capacity for each one of the areas where they're at.
And if they didn't work out a binational deal and they tried to sell it to somebody else within the states, what use can somebody do with it since it's at the end of the canal?
The only thing it'd be using the binational process to say, well, they would let Mexico use that. On the next topic, we'll talk about why they're wanting to go that route. And I'll just move into that if it's okay, because it kind of describes that. There's also a discussion of a turnout in the AAC for Mexico. That's been on the table since way back in the early 90s. Back in the early 2000s, actually 2005, we went back to Washington, D.C., met with the IBWC from both sides of the Americans and also on the Mexico government officials. Pretty high-level conference of people there, and they were wanting to put this particular turnout somewhere in the All-American Canal. We suggested at the time that it be put in above drop 3. No capacity problems, works fine. The only problem is it takes it around Mexicali and brings it back into the pumping plant that goes to Tijuana. And the main purpose for the turnout is for water to be used for that pumping plant to go to Tijuana. And then with the Mexican, and then through issues related to the All-American Canal on legal issues, all of that got dropped and pushed off the table at the time. Mexico, was suing on the AAC, and so the federal government just said, we're stopped at this point. The earthquake brought a new attention to this turnout and having it at the tail end of the West Side Main Canal because their infrastructure in Mexico was destroyed and they couldn't get water to their pumping plant. So they wanted an alternate outlet that they could get some water into that plant through the All-American Canal. and they want 200 CFS capacity, and we've told them that that is not available. And even on the 155, if somehow they got the right to use that, in a current situation of the capacity of the canal where it's at, all the way back to East Highline, you can't deliver 155 every day. We could only give it to them on available capacity on a daily basis. And we kind of thought it was going that way. At the last meeting, they went back, they want 200. And so we're in negotiations with IBWC. I would say negotiations and a study of this. They've thrown a cost estimate of about $7 million to build this structure. We think there's a lot missing. Our engineering staff, Ishmael Gomez, will be working with the Bureau of Reclamation to develop a much better cost estimate. There's sheet piling, there's dewatering, there's lots of things that's missing out of their estimate. Put that together and then take it back to Mexico and show them what the United States side feels that's a cost. And then we'll see if they're willing to go ahead with that, because one thing they're looking for is financing or someone to pay that cost. But the real issue is we can't deliver that as an alternate source of water on a firm basis every day. And so originally they talked about, well, we'd take it on what we could get on a day, and that would help us if something happened in Mexico, we would have an alternate supply of water to put into Tijuana. So we have those ongoing talks. We have a tour in Mexico, I believe it's the 12th of April. They're going to go look at those facilities over there, and then we're supposed to be getting Bureau and IID staff together to come up with a better estimate, and then we'll schedule another IBWC meeting, which will be held in San Diego with the Mexican IBWC and the United States IBWC, along with the Bureau, City of San Diego. They'd like to be there at this meeting, and IID, and I believe that's all at this point that's been at those meetings. All those are pretty good contingent from the Mexico side.
Has the Bureau made any indication of where they're at on this?
They're being pretty quiet about it, Director Hanks. They're not making any commitments. They just want to get a lot of stuff together, and Carlos has been working on with staff on, we're working also an estimate to clean or to clean to where we need to be all the way back to Highline check, if that need be, what that cost might be, and also looking at the viability of the 155 CFS that might be there. Because we think if we do it, there's a lot of things. There's O&M costs, there's the electrical costs, the construction costs. All those things have not really been totally considered. So right now it's really kind of in a high level stage, but if I had my guess, there's going to be a turnout. But we need to make sure that we, the IID, are held harmless and held, to where there is no impact on our water users. We've made that very clear. Any water that gets delivered down that canal cannot impact Imperial Valley farmers.
You have that in writing to the Bureau?
No, that's only been said at the IBWCs, and we've talked about it at both the meeting in San Diego, which Carlos and Ishmael attended the day that I was in Las Vegas at the other one, and that has been brought up in all the meetings that we've talked about, but eventually we'll get that in writing, yes.
Yeah, because I think we should have something like that in writing in front of those guys, because, when you're dealing with a U.S. government and the Mexican government, you know how it is. They just cut a deal and we get what's left.
Well, the thing is, that particular part, IBWC, is under the State Department. It's not under Interior.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. The State Department's the same.
The State Department and Interior are two different departments, and things can happen over here without the influence of others. So we need to stay on top of that, and just letting you know that we are on top of it.
I would just like to see something in writing from the IID stating, if that goes down, what we need to protect ourselves.
We can definitely put something together and send it to Lori.
All right.
Okay. Director Hanks?
Yeah, I would suggest if it looks like it's headed that way, with this last earthquake that tore up Mexico and shook us up pretty good too, that we look to the feds to take up the burden of providing reliability of the siphon over New River, because it do no good with the turnout if we can't get it across anyway.
That was brought to their attention. And
every time I look at that thing, I keep thinking, man, we need some type of reliability to get water on the other side. That's about a third of our distribution.
our own reliability in addition to Mexico, because we told them if something happened, we wouldn't be able to pump water down there either. So they have to look at they're putting in a place that's not totally guaranteed for a reliable source of water if we have a 8.9 or something like that. So.
Okay, and yes.
And physically, Mike, where are they talking about the turnout being?
It'll be just right at the tail end of the All-American Canal where the west side main turns and goes north. They'll just right on that particular side where their pumping plant would be installed over there. There'll be 2 contractors involved even. We would build it. They want the IID to be the contractor on all of this and project management and all that. Build it up to the fence, stop, and then they pick it up and take it on.
Are there already holding basins on the Mexican side?
Yes, they have what they call a lagoon. And there is places where they bring the water in now and then they pump out of that. So they are.
The size of that, do you know the size?
No, I don't.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you, Mr. King. Moving on to item number 9, page 108 on your agenda, Project Management Office Organization or Structure. Mr. Marcial. And I do not expect this to take as long as your presentation in La Quinta.
No, ma'am. Good afternoon.
Start the light, Gloria. It's got 5 minutes.
In your board packet, you have an organizational structure. And the premise of this structure was to improve visibility into customer service performance, improve oversight into the customer service projects, and provide some performance metrics to the team. The personnel changes include a project manager from water construction maintenance section transitioning over to the PMO by the end of the month. We have a project manager and a project manager senior from energy generation. One of the project managers working on deep well project. That person will stay there until the project is finished, anticipating in November of 2011. The project manager senior, excuse me, is working on Unit 3 upgrade. That person would stay on that project until the end of the project. We also have one project manager in the Energy Business Analysis and Development Unit in Energy, and that would transition over to the water support side by the middle of next month. Customer service projects. For Imperial, we have one project manager senior, 3 project managers, and 3 coordinators. In La Quinta, we have one project manager senior, 4 project managers, and 3 coordinators. The transition for that, it would physically remain in the same location. Functionally, they would remain with the customer service operations. Budget and performance information will go over to the PMO for the oversight function. The responsibility and accountability for customer interaction and service will remain with the Energy Department. The PMO will work closely with the IT and the Energy Analyst Group to assess the custom CSP SAP application so that we can gather that information and make it available to you. We want to verify visibility of the CSP projects, report plan and actual project performance, and verify the management information exists for proper oversight. We want to minimize the impact to business operations, and we're planning, if this goes through, to look at the budget transfer to be presented to you by next week. If you have any questions.
Questions, Mr. Kelly?
Yes, we're going to present this for as an action item next week. We ask the board to vote on it and to support it. We did have a meeting internally last week with some of the departments. This is not universally loved within IID. It's been tried before with some mixed results. My own feeling is that the need for a centralized PMO, one that is robust enough to track all of the projects, because IID is an organization of projects, is needed. We don't need to impede projects. We don't need to unnecessarily hold up projects. We do need to account for projects. and we need a transparent process that not only provides information to the board, but frankly protects the management. So we are not about running projects through this sort of superstructure. What we want is a robust enough PMO to account for all the projects that IID is doing at any one time, and to have a free exchange that not only keeps the board informed, but keeps management abreast of where we are, and is independent enough to do all those things at the same time. So we'll be back on the 22nd, and we'd ask the board to support this new centralized PMO.
Director Hanks?
Yes. What I'm hearing from you, Mr. Kelly, is that what you're saying would be consistent then with the board policy as written.
It would. It's reflected in the governance manual right now, and this would be consistent with that.
Okay, and that would be a solid line to the general manager and a dotted line to the board for...
It maintains the dotted line reporting function to the board that we have in place now, and I think you could argue that it solidifies the already solid line to the general manager's office.
Is there any reason we can't take action today? We have a huge agenda next week.
If you want to move for approval, I'll second it.
Mr. Garber, this is under information. I tried to do that once, and I was not able to do that.
But we
really don't like
have
it
a
when you do
motion and a
that.
second.
It's not consistent with the agenda. I wish you could. I wish we would agendize it that way. The problem is, all this, I mean, if you look at the agenda, it just says that...
Yeah, I tried that once before, Jim.
What we could do, Director Hanks, is have it appear as consent next week, and then we could include the budget transfer so that it would be a cleaner record.
Yeah, because, it's the way the next board meeting is shaping up, it looks like it's really going to be heavy. And that's my concern, that it's just consistent with the policy.
I just put it on a consent. Can I say a few things?
Sure.
I just, Mr. Kelly, I know you've put a lot of work into this, and this thing's been kicked around back and forth. I know Angel's put a lot of work into it. I think the main thing we're trying to do is get accountability here, and we're not trying to, like you said, slow the projects down, but the staff and everybody has to be accountable to where the money's going and what the costs of the projects are. And I think you've done the best you can with this thing. Like you said, not everybody's happy with this thing, but we'll know down the road, and hopefully this thing works correctly. And that's the main thing. And Angel, I know you get burdened down with this whole thing. Are you okay with all this?
It's fine. We'll do our best, and we won't impact the operations.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And in your chart, you mentioned something about water. Will you have the customer projects for water also? You have customer service operations for energy, but I see nothing there for customer.
We have a
projects
lot
on
of the projects already running through project systems. For example, all the projects for the county, for county road crossings, we have oversight on those, and those are included in your reports right now as they are.
Okay, but you have like a separation there. Will there be a separation for that from the other, or?
I understand. We'll take a look at it and see if we're capturing all that as well.
Director Desert?
Yeah, there's two organizational charts. One's in the agenda, and then there's another one, and that's full encompassing.
The one in the second document is the old one.
The old one.
Yeah, the one in your agenda is the proposed new model. There are 39 boxes or positions in the revised PMO, as opposed to 22, I think, on the old one.
And then my question, I didn't hear the answer for Mr. Hanks, Director Hanks. The CSPs, any other CSPs in the IID, including water, are they going to be?
I believe that the water customer service projects are already captured.
But we'll verify that, and we'll make sure we include those.
Thank you.
Okay, are these folks going to be moved physically from where they're now, or are they going to stay where they're located, in their offices?
They'll
Or
stay in their departments,
stay in their departments?
but they will have not only a functional reporting relationship with the PMO, but they will be accounted for in the budget that way.
Okay.
Somebody said that they were already moving people over to the two-story building. Is that PMO that were getting moved or no? Because I heard Friday that people were getting moved.
We're there now.
Yeah, I
In
know
Valley
you're
Plaza,
there
yeah.
now. That's where I go see you.
That's a separate facilities thing that isn't impacted by this. It's just a space-saving move by facilities, I think.
And Mr. Marcial, I'd like to make an appointment with you for next week to go over all this, sit down and talk to you about this next week sometime.
Yes, anytime.
All right, cool. Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 10, page 110 on your agenda, Energy Matters. Dr. Koch?
Yes, Madam President. I only have one item. In light of the tragic events unfolding in Japan, a question has come up whether or not the district is prepared for another catastrophic quake, even worse than that occurred on Easter last year. Since that time, we've been updating our emergency plans, taking into account the lessons that were learned during that earthquake. And about 3 weeks ago, we finally completed our updated energy emergency operations draft. And I'm fairly comfortable that in the event of a slightly more moderate earthquake or slightly worse earthquake than we had in April, we are in good shape to respond to it. But given the devastation that occurred in Japan, there's no way that we can prepare for anything of that magnitude here. But so long as the transmission lines coming into the valley are up and energized, we have a ways now to respond and to get the lights back on, have identified the critical facilities that would get the service restored first, and a way in which to address the problem to the extent that that we can. So I'd just like the board to know that we have been looking at it in anticipation of this type of event.
Questions or comments from the board? Not. Thank you, Dr. Cloak. We will move on to item number 11 on page 111 on your agenda. El Centro Unit 3 Repower Project Quarterly Update. We have Mr. Gatlin. Yeah, Project Manager. Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you. This is my second report. I made one last fall, if you
Probably won't take
recall.
more than 15, 20 minutes, will it?
I'll keep it short.
All right, thank you.
Depends on your questions.
Okay.
Okay, next slide, just give you an overview. We'll cover the cash flow and financial status first, and then we'll sort of wind up with change orders and had a few items in between. Next slide. This is a photograph that we took on, as you see, on the 23rd of February. The two gas turbine foundations, and HRSG foundations, which I'll cover in a second, are to the right and left. Sort of, next slide, is the same shot after the project will be completed using our plant design system model. And another name for plant design system is 3D CAD. You may have heard that term in the past. So this is what the project will look like. Next slide is Unit 3 and 4 boilers. Of course, we're replacing the Unit 3 boiler. This is a lift station in the sort of in the background there, that round caisson. We'll talk more about that in a moment. You'll understand why I brought it up. one of the things we had to do in repowering the steam turbine is modify the existing foundation, and you see there are 6 columns, and they're saw cutting actually the 6th column there, so you see the sort of the before and after. And this is one of the gas turbine foundations looking south. Here's a model of the heat recovery steam generator, which is on the right, and the gas turbine, which is on the left. This is a model shot inside the turbine building with the steam turbine on the sort of the right side, right center. The generators on the left, the subskids below, and the condensers, that round, complicated-looking structure between the columns there. It's another shot of the steam turbine. This is our cash flow. You see the plan was 123 million. We've received invoices for 114, and we've actually expended 111 million. This is as of the end of January. This is a, don't be put off with the complexity of this slide. Is very easy, and if you read the monthly reports, it's in there, and we try to explain it in our monthly report. The MWA plan, that first column to the left, that's what you approved last March, and those are all the buckets, if you will, of money that you approved last March. And if you recall, let me just go to the next column over let's use the Siemens equipment. You approved 109 million for the Siemens equipment, and then we had a $3 million windfall in currency, if you recall. And so we moved that money out of the budget, and out of the plan, and reduced our budget by $3 million, and we actually added it down in the contingency line, the third row from the bottom. So it's a balancing act in moving all these monies around. So that we sort of treat the budget that way. The budget reflects our approved change orders, just by definition. The next column is the assigned column, and that's all the approved change orders plus any that are in the process. The forecast column is basically what I'm trying to tell you where I think we'll end up right now at the end of the project. Now, I would like for you to go down to the 2 lines, one that says, well, 3 lines actually, contingency. You see we still have the $10.3 million in contingency, which is controlled by Mr. Kelly. We have potential change orders or claims in the amount of $6 million, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. And then we have another $8 million of monies that aren't earmarked for anything, that we're sort of controlling at the project level. So you could add the 10 million and the 8 million, and that's about $18 million of money that we have for contingencies or things that we don't know about right now. So I guess the bottom line is we're in good shape right now on the budget, on the 248 million. Here's our manufacturing progress, and the good news here is the HRSG modules. Let me skip down those. The modules were being fabricated in Thailand. They're actually on the high seas, and they will be here at the end of the month. They'll arrive in San Diego at the end of the month. Most likely get here the first or second week of April. The gas turbines have undergone, one of the gas turbines has already been tested and inspected, and they're in the process of dismantling that equipment and boxing it up. We expect both gas turbines to arrive, at the end of April or beginning of May. The steam turbine is on track for delivery at the end of September, and the condenser in August. So we're in good shape manufacturing-wise. Progress, engineering progress. Worley Parsons is ARB's engineering contractor. They're at the end of January, they were 46% complete versus what I call the new plan of 50%. versus an original plan of 42%. What they did was try to accelerate their engineering schedule to aid the project. Construction progress at the end of January, ARB was 6.9, almost 7% versus a plan of 8% complete. Not too concerned right now. If you also notice, they have their 100% point at the March of 2012, and actually our substantial completion date is May 1st, 2012. So they're aggressively pushing the schedule, so it's not a concern right now. Areas of focus. I won't cover everything here. I will hit on the Southern California Gas Company tie-in. They came back with the price of just a shade over $1 million to do that work, and that's about almost $1 million less than we have budgeted. So that's another bit of monies that we can put into our other category to help pay for other, if we have individual overruns.
Why did it come back so lower than you had anticipated? Were you just over budgeted, or what?
I don't. You have some ups, and Madam President, and you have some downs. I mean, you never.
And it all washes out at the end.
It all washes out. That's right.
Henry?
Clarify a little bit more. The actual work and the SoCal Gas's actual budget to make that tie is $2.3 million. So it's actually more than we budgeted.
That's what I'm saying. We're under $1 million.
Yeah, under. But I'm just saying that it was their estimate to do the work is $2.3 million. But what SoCal Gas is going to do is they're going to pay for a portion of the.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All
Sorry,
right.
I forgot that point. That's a good point. They did on the basis of the size of the line and what we've been using. We pay that prorated share, and they pay the they pay the rest.
All right.
Henry, that's a good point. I'm going to talk about the standby diesel generator. I know that's. Why don't you go back, Henrik? Can you go back one? Yeah. I'm going to talk about the standby diesel generator for a second, and let's see. One other point: the finalized electrical interconnect issues and design, that's going well. So that's to tie in the plant to the new project. On the standby diesel, Henrik. We've had some internal discussions about whether or not this might be considered outside the original MWA. The Siemens tells us, Siemens our equipment supplier for the gas turbines and the steam turbine, and they tell us that if we were to have a total loss of power, that we would have to lock out the gas turbine. We could not restart the gas turbine for 40 hours, nor the steam turbine for 60 hours, because of the eccentricity of the rotor. I mean, just the rotor binds up, and you have to let it cool down. Is the long story short. So, in order to protect against that, if we were to lose power at El Centro generating station, we would need a standby diesel with 1,500 kilowatts to be able to put those rotors on, turn those rotors to keep them from binding up, so we could restart the turbine in a short period of time. The upshot is that we've authorized an additional $80,000 for ARB Worley Parsons to competitively bid a standby diesel generator. In other words, for us to select a supplier that meets our specifications. We think that equipment would cost $1 million and maybe another $2 to $3 million to engineer and install. And it's fairly complex. It's not just plop a generator out there and plug it into the wall. It's you've got to wire up all the controls, and it's a lot of engineering has to be done to that. So. I've allocated in our budget, I've allocated about $4 million for that effort. And the thing is...
I'm going to ask a real stupid question, because I'm not an engineer.
Yes, ma'am.
Why'd you get those rudders if they can't?
Well, that's true for any gas turbine or any turbine. You have to rotate it when you shut it down. You have to rotate it, or it's going to do that, regardless if it's Siemens or General Electric or when I was in the Navy.
Now?
I beg your pardon?
They do that now with the equipment that we have.
Yeah, you have to do that now. You have to put the equipment on turning gear. Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, Henry, have we ever had to do that before where we lost power?
We've had two losses. We've had 2 losses. I didn't understand your question. We've had 2 losses of power, right, in the last 20 years?
Yeah, so I've been here about 20 years. We've lost total to El Centro Generating Station about 2 times.
And
one of the things, Joe missed that budget, that bullet, that basically this standby generator will just provide the functionality that most of our existing units have as far as a quick restart after total loss.
So we have that now already
on our other units.
on the other units.
So
Okay.
that's kind of why we're saying it's really fundamentally part of the original scope, because it just gives us the same flexibility we have with our other units. What other units have are substantial battery sets that actually work
So
this turning.
the technology does not exist where you could bypass this rudder thing, that if you go out of power, you don't have to have the standby? The technology does not exist?
Well,
You can tell I'm not an engineer.
it's just I understand. It's really the physics of it. It just heats up. It gets hot, and it warps, I guess, and you have to wait until it cools down. I mean, you can't. It's not a technological issue. It's just physics until it cools down to.
What is it made out of?
Chrome, probably. I don't know. It's an exotic metal. I mean, these are very expensive components in our turbines.
Okay.
Yeah,
Director
what
Hanks?
our old units do, they have these huge battery sets.
Go to the microphone, will you, please?
Okay, there's one right there. If you
Henry, I think probably, maybe I can help you here,
Okay.
hopefully. What you're talking about is just basically using this generator as an auxiliary engine.
That's right.
So if we lose power, our equipment is heated up, and if we don't keep it spinning, it could warp or
That's right.
swell. So this generator would serve as an auxiliary motor to keep it spinning like we would a alfalfa dehydrator drum or whatever until it cools down. And
Well, that makes sense. How come you didn't say that?
Because I don't know what an alfalfa generator drum is.
I can explain it.
I'm not a farmer. I'm sorry.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, go on.
Okay. So anyway,
Thank you,
that's
Jim.
so the bottom line is we've authorized ARB Worley Parsons to solicit competitive quotes for the standby diesel, and that's the initial effort's about $80,000. So we'll see where we are, and we'll come back and report if we want to go forward with spending several $1 million to do that.
How many horsepower is that?
Was it a kilowatt? 700.747 times.
It's a little bit over.
It's about 2,000 horsepower, I think, more or less.
And so the engineering is not just, because you would buy the gen set itself from a Caterpillar or somebody.
That's correct.
The engineering has to do with the gear reduction or the gear drive to.
A lot of it's electrical. You have to tie it into the existing or the new electrical equipment we're bringing on site. Then there's also some complicated controls so that you get automatic start. If you have loss of power, you automatically start this diesel. It's more than just, as I say, plopping a cat diesel down in the site out there.
Okay. Director Menville?
You would calculate, if we had a loss of power and you couldn't get up and running for 40 or 60 hours, you just calculate that's going to cost us over a period of time, and then that would determine whether you're going to spend the $3 or $4 million, right?
Well, I'd say it was one of the arguments that Dr. Koch made when we met with him a few weeks ago. But, you have to balance that against, as we said, it occurs once every 10 years or so. It's just...
Can I?
Go ahead.
There's actually 3 options. Option 1 is just to design but not install an engine. Option 2 is to put in the engine that doesn't keep the 40-hour or 60-hour lockup. And option 3 is to provide Black Star capability. Mr. Ostrowski does not believe that we need the third option, and he's particularly not enthusiastic about the second. He would like, and Henrik, if I misstate, feel free to jump in. He would like to essentially design the control or the ability to, at some further time, just drop in the engine should we ever decide we need it. Our ops people, who would like to have a 500% or 600% reserve margin of spinning reserve, would like to go all the way to black start. And so we've been, in other words, spend more than shown here. So there's an argument going on internally. Do we need to spend even the $3 to $4 million here so that we have it within 60 hours? Do we need Black Star capability, or should we just design the unit so at some other time we could come back and retrofit the unit? But that would require us spending some additional dollars at this time. And the argument's been going on internally. I say argument, discussion has been going on internally now for 6 weeks. And we think that finding exactly how much money we're talking about would be a good beginning point to make sure that we resolve this issue. But I would hate to be in a situation where we had some type of a outage of the transmission lines. The unit goes down, and I have to tell everybody, you have to wait for 3 days before the unit's available again.
And why was this not included in the original major work authorization? Why?
There is a question of whether or not it was. Henrik pointed out that all our existing units essentially have this functionality. Hence, we think that we can put it in. If this were a $20,000 or $30,000 unit, we would probably just go forward and never bring it to the board's attention. Unfortunately, it's not a $20,000 or $30,000 item. It's a $3 or $4 million item. So we want the board to understand that even if this is not technically a major change order, we're going to bring it back to the board as a specific item for the board to make the decision on once internally we make a decision on what we should be doing.
Besides the 30, 40-hour wait, is there the potential of damage to the equipment too?
I'm not really a gas turbine or steam turbine engineer, but I don't think so. I think that's why they lock it out. Their computer that controls those units locks us out from restarting those units. So I think I'm sure they picked some conservative number to so that we wouldn't damage it.
Yeah, I'd like to see you guys move ahead with it. And, whether it was settle the issue, whether it was part of the agreement or not, but I think it...
We're going to bring it back to the board regardless, Director. This is a big enough issue that we're not going to try to cross hairs and say, oh, we thought it was part of the MWA. It's either going to be a change... Well, regardless, we're bringing it back to the board.
Okay, go on.
I've already touched upon some of these major activities, and I don't think I'll spend any more time on that slide there. Next one. We've got some notable change order requests or claims from ARB that I'd like to bring to the board's attention. The first, ARB's contention that we oversized the electrical conduits, and they're claiming about $800,000 for that oversized situation. The second one is the Unit 3 boiler, and I'll talk more about that in a moment, but we found some asbestos materials on the interior of the boiler that were frankly a surprise to us. And
One that you're buying, the new one?
No. This is the old boiler that we're tearing
Older?
down.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So, when we were able to shut the boiler down in October, we were able to go inside for the first time. We found some asbestos materials that we didn't know about. And so, frankly, what's happened is, just jump ahead, we've elected not to tear down Unit 3 boiler because it would be quite expensive to handle that material. Third one is that added lift station. If you recall, in one of the photos, that round sump, that round concrete sump, ARB has told us that they consider that to be outside the scope of work, and they have not formally told us what their claim is, but I've allowed about $1 million for that.
So this lift station, it was not part of the original drawings and blueprints and all
But we
this?
believe
I'm asking-
it was.
Okay.
That's why it's a dispute.
So can you go back and prove in the drawings that, look at, here it is, it says lift station, there you go.
There are dozens and dozens of change orders that go back and forth on a job of this
Hendrick.
size. These are
Hendrick.
4 that we've been asked to assist on because there may be some dickering back and forth and some legal dickering before they're resolved.
Yeah, I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about pre-Joe. Yeah.
Okay.
And Joe wouldn't know about that because Joe wasn't here. But I want to talk a little bit about the approach we took on this project. We wanted to minimize the risk in going, when we were developing this project, and ultimately we came to the board with a pretty
broad-
descriptive discussion of what you were getting for a certain price that was relatively firm. Let me call it a firm price. So we were able to minimize risks, financial risk, in that we could have brought that project to the board, and the board decided not to do it. And I guess we'd done that once before. Engineering rule of thumb is about 10% of a project cost. So if we were going to engineer the whole project out to get everything as close to the actual cost, we would have spent $25 million to have the engineering done and a construction contractor build, ultimately construct to that specific plan. But we would have spent $25 million, and again, you would have the option not to go forward with it. What we did is we spent $5 million to develop this and bring it to the board. So about 10 to 15% of the engineering, only 10 to 15% of the detailed engineering was done. Because again, if we would have done all the engineering, it would have been $25 million. So we did enough engineering to get a good price, get everybody comfortable with the project. And this specific item, there's monies in the budget to do it because we knew that we had only done 10 to 15% of the engineering. As Joe had mentioned, we're only
But
about 50.
you expected these issues to come up then?
Yeah, and we allotted money.
But so you
and we
prepared
allotted
your-
money to cover that. So again, I just wanted to give you a little bit of history on how
Okay,
we
all right.
we did this. That's why it seems to be a lot of change orders. It's just ultimately the engineering getting done, and you're not going to get it all nailed down until you have 100% of the engineering done.
Okay.
So there'll still be a few more things that do come up because we're only 50% done with the
Okay,
engineering.
all right, I got you.
And actually,
Excuse me, Director
just-
Menville?
I just had this, so on the lift station on the PowerPoint,
yes.
that wasn't figured in, so it's an extra $1 million to put it in. That's what you're saying?
Well, if the first of all, that $1 million is my figure. I just
Yeah.
pull it out of the
Okay,
air.
that's fine. So it
But,
wasn't figured in, but it's necessary, so it's just an add-on cost is what it's going to be to make the project work.
if we agree that it's, if we agree that with the ARB that they're correct and we're not.
Yeah, there's 2 things that you're going to discuss with the contractor about these changes. One, whether the change is correct, whether this is something that they're entitled to a change on or not. And 2, even if it's correct, whether their price is correct. And those discussions are going on with all of these, even though some of these really haven't been submitted as changes yet. They're just hinting to us that they're paying money on this, and perhaps it wasn't in they hadn't included it in their original estimate. their original estimate we don't care how they generated their estimate. That's their problem. All we care about is that if it was something that they should have, something that was in part of our RFP, then they have to do the work. So some of these, they've submitted changes. Some of these, there's been discussion that we anticipate may be a change. We're getting ahead of it. We're analyzing it. We'll negotiate it with them, and we'll deal with it.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
right.
Yeah, I'd like to make one more point before I leave this page. If you go back to page 13 for a second, you'll see that potential potential change orders or claims, and you'll see a line item there of $6.049 million. That's where I allocated, there, thank you. That's where I allocated monies for not only these potential claims, these change orders, but also put $4 million in there for the standby diesel.
So we're anticipating this to happen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And just so the board's comfortable, I know we had a half-a-day meeting on those 4 change orders on Friday, and I know Angel was in the meeting. I know there was a lot of engineering staff. I mean, we're ahead of those items and trying to stay ahead of them.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Let's talk about a moment about Unit 3 boiler, and I promise to get out of here, depending on how many questions you have. So if you go to page 21 there, Henry. Thank you. So back in September, we executed a change order in the amount of $2.2 million for all demolition. And I should point out that we knew that we were at the beginning of the project that we were going to have to demolish, for example, the old steam turbine, a lot of the piping inside the turbine building, a lot of the old equipment we knew we had to take out. We did not have a price for that in the contract. We had $3 million allocated for that effort. But what we did is we commissioned ARB in Worley Parsons to survey all this equipment and piping for asbestos and lead paint. We got some reports. We eventually got a price of $2.2 million. And included in that was an extra of $195,000 to demolish Unit 3 boiler. And we felt like it would be prudent to demolish the boiler because once this project is complete, that boiler is basically surrounded on 3 of the 4 sides. And as I pointed out earlier in the earlier discussion, that boiler was operating up until the beginning of October, and we were not able to go inside the boiler and determine if we had any asbestos material in there. So, of course, we shut, as you know, from the groundbreaking ceremony, we in early October, we had shut down the plant. In October, at the end of October, ARB came and told us that they had found some what I call ACM, asbestos-containing material in the boiler. And then a couple of days later, they told us the extent of it. And so you see a period of time from the 1st of November to the 13th of December where it appears that nothing's happened. And in fact, we had ARB go back and solicit quotes from 4 potential subcontractors because we knew it was going to be very expensive. We wanted to find a really good price. And they came back in the middle of December and said it would be $1.8 million to do that. And we just elected not to proceed. So from their December invoice, I instructed our business manager not to pay that $195,000 for the demolition of the boiler, knowing full well that they had done some work. They have done some work associated with that scope of work, but I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know what a fair price is. And then in February, ARB came back and notified us that the additional costs were additional, call it $455,000, or if you take away the $195,000, it's about a $260,000 claim against us. And so this meeting that Mr. Garber spoke about on Friday this is one of the items we discussed. So this is also in the mill.
Okay. That concludes your presentation. Questions, Director
I've got
Hanks?
a question for Henrik. Henrik, in the building trade, contractors try to keep their change orders with a percent, 2 to 5%, say the good architect work. Do you have a figure that you guys go by? Can I put you on the hot spot there?
Well, I think everything that we talked about as far as these 4 potential change orders, to keep it in perspective, if you total all those up and it all went ARB's way, and they got everything they wanted, it's about, or it's probably even less than 1% of the project cost. To kind of put that in perspective. Okay. So those 4 change orders, if you add those up, it's less than 1% of the project.
If they got their way on the demolition, then you're looking at maybe an additional $1.2 million over the $3 million that you had set aside for it. Is that correct?
Well, it was actually a little bit more specifically, it was the demolition of the hazardous materials.
It was everything.
Yeah. Okay. So we had put $3 million. They ended up 2.2. So there's $800,000 in there that we haven't spent on.
Why don't you say what you're going to do with the boiler, the existing boiler? Well, how are you going to handle the asbestos issue?
Well, let me just give you a little bit of history on Unit 2. We repowered Unit 2, as you may know, in 1993. The boiler was still standing, and the unit went into commercial operation. We didn't actually demo the boiler until a couple of years after Unit 2 went into service. We were going to handle Unit 3 about the same way, with the exception is we got this incredible offer to pretty much take that whole boiler out for $195,000. So that was substantially less than we paid for El Centro Unit 2 boiler demolition, and it had to do with the commodities prices are just in the stratosphere.
For scrap metal.
They would make most of their money on the sale of all the material they pulled out, not the $195,000 they were going to charge us to demo it. So what I expect to happen, IID can do one or two things. Actually, all of the asbestos on the exterior of the boiler has been abated, so you basically have this steel shell with asbestos inside, and based on that, you could leave it in that condition for many years, or you could elect for a couple of years from now to demo it. And like Joe was saying, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge to get in there, but I mean, you've got access. You got access on one side, and a competent demo contractor could come in there and do it. So we elected not to do it during this repowering effort based on, again, they came back and said it was going to be $1.8 million. I'd like to competitively bid that out and see if we can get a better price. And
Director Desert?
our focus is to get Unit 3 repowered done and online. That's our focus.
So all we're really fighting about is the work that they did do, that limited amount on the outside, they need to get paid for, and we need to figure out how much they were considering getting back from the metal to see what the real price was. So it's a much smaller number than the numbers you're seeing.
Yeah, I don't think any of us would be crazy to see it sit around for a couple of years, though.
Director Desert, do you have a comment or a question?
Did I answer your question,
Yeah.
Director Haynes? Thanks.
Hi. Yeah. We've heard tonight that there's $18 million currently left in contingencies and change order money for the rest of the project, which is approximately 50%. How much did we start with for change orders and contingencies?
Back to 13. Director Desert, I'd have to go back and look at the earlier slides. I mean, that number is coming down as a project matures. I don't expect us to wind up with that $8 million or whatever that number is now at the end of the project. I mean, I truly don't believe we'll spend the $10 million that we have earmarked for contingency, but that other line item where it says other, some of that money, particularly, we'll probably have to pay other change orders to ARB as a project goes forward.
And I did hear correctly that there's $10 million out of the general manager's budget for change orders?
Well, no, the $10 million that I alluded to, if you go to 13 again, Henry, that's controlled by the general manager. In other words, we have to go to the general manager, and that $10.3 million.
But that any draw on that contingency has to be approved by the general manager.
Oh.
But now actually you see that the other line item is there's 8.4, and this is as of the 31st of January, of course. we'll spend some of that money. I really can't tell you how much, but I could go back if you like and see what it was a few months ago and get a sense of.
I was just trying to we're 50% through the project, and we've got $18 million left in contingencies and change orders that we can utilize.
We've spent 113. We've expended 113, but we're only 7% complete in the field. That's a concern I have.
Yeah, I think it gets back to what Director Hanks was asking about the overall, what's acceptable within industry for change orders and contingencies.
Well, my experience is that the 10 million even is pretty light, but so far we've been lucky. I mean, we've been maybe the development project was done well. Percentage of change orders, you probably a contractor would say that a good project maybe has less than 3 to 5%. I mean, if you have a lot of changes, it's a project pretty much out of control, and it usually finishes late. So, even contractors, believe it or not, don't like changes because it really is disruptive to their effort. So I think that a 3 to 5%, if we could keep it to 3 to 5%, that would be a good. That's what ARB's told me, that their better projects are that sort of range.
Yeah, and I had one last question, or actually two. This is my first quarterly report as a board member. Do we hear quarterly reports on all change orders, or do some of them just happen as a board?
How many change orders have there been since this project started?
We're probably in the, right now, we're probably about 40 with ARB.
I mean, you're getting change orders daily on minor items. It's common in this type of project. I think, and I'm Henrik and these guys, I think they brought those 4 change orders to you because they're significant, but there are hundreds and hundreds of change orders in a project like this. I don't know if you want to see a list of them. I'm sure they can produce them.
Yeah, they gave us a list last week, and my last question, it has to do with that list. I think it was also included in this packet. It's a change order with the last 4 digits, 1315, and it's for the Siemens factory inspection services of main components of the El Centro Unit 3 repower.
I can address that if you like.
Yeah.
We hired a company in Switzerland named AF Kalinko to be our third-party inspector in the factories in Germany, Thailand, and Sweden. Rather than send somebody over from the U.S., we felt like it would be better to have a local inspector. So this inspector, and it was not one person, it's several, they go and witness tests on the generators and the turbines. They inspect the equipment when it's packaged up to make sure it's properly packaged for shipment across the ocean. They witness hydrostatic tests of the components, they fill them full of water, pressure test them. So it's just, we felt like it was a more cost-effective way to do that work than hire somebody from the U.S. and send them over, pay for the airfare.
Does that include the people going to Korea, or is that separate?
No, they have an office in Thailand, so they have local people there.
Okay, but more specifically, last week when we had these change orders presented to us, and it was interesting, the first time I've ever seen them, the backup for that specific $250,000 cost included language where it was going to be a cost savings because it would have cost $1,750,000 for us to send our own people. Is that accurate for backup?
Frankly, I didn't come up with that number, Director Desert. I saw that the report to which you're referring, but that sounds about right. For the airfare and everything. So we basically pay about $8,000 or $9,000 a trip for somebody to travel to the factory in Sweden or Germany to witness these tests or inspect the equipment.
But the backup said it would have cost us. Otherwise, it would have cost us $1,788,202 to send our own people.
Did it say the cost, or say we had that budgeted? I seem to recall it said budgeted amount.
No, it was just, it's in the backup.
Okay, I did not come up with that. That's not my report. That's from PMO, I believe.
Okay. I'll ask them about it.
Okay, I don't know where they didn't. I don't know how they came up with that number.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? No? Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 12, page 133 on your agenda. Water Department General Matters. Mr. Villalon, Interim Water Manager.
Just some general issues related to water use and end-of-year projections. As Mr. King reported, generally California is underusing water, currently around 6%. Our projection is to be under a little less than 1%. We're under 21,000 through this morning. It is really early in the year, though, to be making any kind of projections. We probably won't get a real picture until maybe mid-June. And that'll be pretty much driven by the cropping in the valley. Looking at last year's to this year's alfalfa acres, for instance, this year we're at 132,100. Last year we were at 132,700. So that didn't change much last year to this year. Wheat is up. We're at 74,000 this year compared to 56,000 last year. However, Sudan is only slightly above at 3,000 versus 2,500. If the Sudan market drives Sudan cropping, double cutting, triple cutting, it'll drive up the water use. The variability in the weather that we've had 2 separate freezing days versus warming days. This is warming up again. Unseasonably warm. It'll drive up water use. The issue with water projections to end of the year, or projecting for the following year for declaration of EDP, is really contingent on weather and market driving up crop prices. So it's really difficult to relate to that. In conjunction with that, the WCAB is going to be looking at the equitable distribution planning process as part of this year's agenda. They have lots of questions. They're now formulating an agenda to review next few meetings. And one of them was water use projections. But I did warn them that even if you're within 5% accuracy on our 2.7, 2.8 draw, you're talking about 120, 130,000 acre feet plus or minus. So projections are wish list plans. We will see how it goes, but we'll be following up with the WCAB on that.
Okay.
That's all I really have, unless you have questions.
Thanks. Questions or comments? Not, we will move on then to item number 13, page 134 on your agenda. Imperial County Historical Society. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, after several bungled attempts to agendize this matter and bring Norm Whitens here before the board, he is here today. He tried to come during our closed session earlier.
He was a no-show one time.
He's here, and he would like to speak to the board about the Pioneers Museum and IID's gallery space there. So, Mr. Whitens.
Thank you, Kevin. Good evening, board members. Yes, there were a couple of attempts to be here before. One time it wasn't on the agenda. The next time I didn't know it was an afternoon meeting. I got here in the evening just in time to miss everything. So. But anyway, to give you a report on what's going on at the museum and your gallery. There are 2 more things that have been completed. I have the interim, what I would consider the interim gallery space that is devoted to the time between the demise of CDC, which is California Development Company, and the building of the Boulder Dam and All-American Canal. So that has been completed. All I have to do is get some carpet on the floor. And I've also completed the map of Imperial Valley and the irrigation system in Imperial Valley. And that is on bench work that is in front of your big map that is on the wall, the map of the Colorado River watershed, and shows the flow of the water from the Colorado River down into Imperial Valley. And we have the Alamo Canal is shown on there, and also the All-American Canal. And it will be lighted, and it will have buttons and lights and everything, just like the big map on the wall. So these things have been done, and I would kind of planning another open house that we could have down there, but I think it's going to be fall before it would work out for everybody. We're late in the spring right now. It's going to be summer pretty soon, so.
How much longer is it going to take to complete the whole display, Mr. Whitens? How much?
I'm looking at 3 more years.
3 more years?
Yes. You know, I thought that when I was doing this interim section before the Boulder Dam and everything, I thought, you know, I'm not going to be able to find much information here, and I did a lot of research. Well, there was talk about Boulder Dam and All-American Canal for 20 years before the bill was ever signed, so there is so much information. And now the next section will be the next 15 years, so that will be Boulder Dam and the All-American Canal. And then I have another section after that, and then 2 more after that. So I have 4 sections to go yet. So the research takes more time than the building.
And do you have enough space in the gallery for?
You still have half of the space left, and that includes the space that is facing the conference. Well, the big meeting room that we have there with the maps and everything on it. I still have 4 spaces behind the map and to the side of the map that haven't been developed yet.
So you're asking for $100,000 for this next phase?
Yes, it would take us from 1931 when they start construction on the dam and the All-American Canal up for the next 15 years.
I think the history, it's very important that we retain all this history for future years. I'll make a motion to approve.
Well, I'll second it. I got a couple of questions.
Discussion, yes.
The Hoover Dam and All-American, you say you have been working on those, or you haven't started on them yet?
Well, you know, I work on them accidentally as I'm doing other things, right. Because when you're looking at when you're doing research, all that comes in, and I've got a lot of artifacts and a lot of archival work that has already been done. So it's not like I haven't started yet, but I try to put them aside and wait till I actually get there.
The next, you say it's going to take about another 3 years to complete everything. So once this money is used up for Hoover Dam and All-American, then you're going to need any more funding to finish off the remaining 3 years of work that's there.
Yes, I would say that after this $100,000, I will probably be here to ask for another $100,000 2 more times.
That when you say there's an area behind the big map wall, is that the area like when you feed everybody there, they go through the line there to get the food? You're going into the back room is where you're going?
That's right. That's all going to be taken up. That is all your space, and that is what they are using for a serving area. Now, they're begging me to make sure that I leave room to move people through there because they will still want to use that as a serving area. But it will be constricted, but it'll still be usable.
Okay, then who are you working with? Mr. Campbell on the expenses and the receipts and everything?
Yes, he sees every invoice.
All right.
I think it would be helpful for this board to take a trip down to the museum, because I've been there before, but I think this new board member hasn't really seen what you have done. And I think, and Mr. Kelly, I think we should all go and look and see, look at the progress and see what else needs to be done. I would like that to refresh my memory.
I think that is appropriate. It's been several years since the board did that.
I think the last time I went to visit was when I met with Andy Horn. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, you board members need to come and see what's going on once in a while.
And, this may just be,
I've been there.
it may just be me, but I'd suggest that Mr. Whitens consider renaming this period of time from interim to the in-between period.
Meeting there.
Only because interim just sort of connotes, the general manager and
The water
water
manager.
department manager.
We'll try to take care of some of the language here.
Okay. Any other further discussion?
Could we have a meeting, an IID board meeting at the facility?
As far as I'm concerned, I think it'd be a good idea. I don't know how it works for you people, but the space is certainly available.
I think it'd be great for staff to see the museum also.
Maybe as we move closer to our 100-year celebration.
Yeah, that's true. We'll try to arrange that.
Okay.
I tell them you sell tickets for, $200 for the raffle, I can go see it then, so
Yeah,
Any other
you could work
better
that
get
out.
them there and
Any
sell them the
further-
tickets.
Further discussion? If not, please vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for letting me get done with this before midnight.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Moving on to item number 14, page 135, California Farm Water Coalition appointment. Mr. Kelly, is that?
Yes, this is a follow-up to the action taken by the board last meeting, and now you're actually going to name a designee that will attend meetings of the Farm Water Coalition.
Who was previously the appointee?
IID has not been represented
we never have.
for some months. It
Well,
used to
Brad
be
Lucky-
used to be a staff member.
Wasn't
Mr.
Brad
Yes.
Lucky used to go there?
Right, but the the executive director has told us that what they'd most like is an elected from this board. And you could
Any
have an
volunteers?
alternate.
And they
as
meet
well.
6 times a year?
Yes,
Where, in Sacramento, or?
yes.
Okay, any volunteers before I volunteer someone?
I
What
would,
time of the month do they meet? When? Not like the third Wednesday where you go to CRB?
He told us that. I'll have to get back to you. Gloria, could you
Yeah, you wanna
consult the
serve?
record there?
Anthony,
Do you want to serve? Can you get time?
you talking to point to
No,
Anthony?
to you,
we're talking about you.
Director.
Sacramento.
Director Desert, would you like to?
Are the meetings required, or can you do it over the telephone?
The ideal would be for you to go, but I think that they would let you make other arrangements periodically. It's 6 a year, and if you had to phone in once or twice, I'm sure that would be an improvement over not being
Attending.
there at all, yeah.
Would you like to,
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
for Director Desert?
Yes.
Okay, please vote. No discussion. Thank you. Moving on to item number 15, page 136, adoption of amended Appendix A1 to Conflict of Interest Code. Mr. Taylor.
Good evening, board members. Vance Taylor with the Legal Department. I'm here to seek your approval of an amended Appendix A1 to the Conflict of Interest Code. As you're aware, the Political Reform Act addresses issues concerning conflicts of interest of public officials through or by requiring the disclosure of certain financial interests. Under the PRA, state and local government agencies are required to adopt a conflict of interest code that articulates requirements consistent with the Act. The conflict of interest rules under the Act apply to any public official making or participating in the making of a governmental decision. Therefore, board members, WCAB members, ECAC members, designated employees, and certain consultants are required to file statements of economic interest, also known as the Form 700. The district's conflict of interest code was adopted in December of 2009 and designates those officials, including employees within the IID, who make or participate in the making of governmental decisions. As a result of a recent reorganization within the district, Appendix A1 has been updated to more accurately address the present complement of personnel within the organization. There have been no changes to the code itself. However, we do request that the board take action to adopt the amended Appendix A1.
Okay.
I've got one question for the general manager. If there is a need to amend it further, does it come back during the year, or do we just wait another full year? Or?
We have not amended it without coming back to the board. We would, and the forms have to be filled out in the spring. Typically, if there's changes in organization, we wait until the forms are due the next spring. I don't know if we've ever had changes significant to have to start refiling late forms. That's a good question.
Yeah, but if someone is identified that needs to fill out the form, then we will.
For instance, that's a good question, and I apologize that I'm not ready to answer it. And I don't know what we do.
Ms. Rivera can.
What we've done, as classifications have changed over the year, like, for example, there are some in that booklet that identified, that classification is then added to the list of the 700 form, and then at the end of the year, we bring it back. But we do amend, the people coming in or being hired into positions that require a 700 form throughout the year, because it would be too complicated to bring it in every time a classification changes.
We're already planning on this action because we had to get ahead of things, so we have asked these people to fill out the forms.
Is this appendix inclusive of outside legal counsel and consultants, or is this strictly for staff?
This is strictly for staff.
Is there a separate appendix that we'll be addressing also, that it does address
the appendix,
outside legal and consultants?
That appendix is A2, but it doesn't list names because I can't identify all the consultants that are going to be used by district management and staff over any given year. It's their responsibility, based on the criteria we establish, to identify consultants.
Are you comfortable with a provision in here that stated that whoever requests, whatever department head requests a consultant that is required to fill out a form, that it's their responsibility? Is that?
Am I comfortable?
Yeah.
I can lead a horse to water. I can't always make him drink. And so historically, consultants didn't fill out 700 forms for years and years and years. In the last few years, there's been a recent trend among all California agencies to try to make the consultants fill out the forms. I make my consultants fill out the forms if I think they qualify. Because of the size of the district, it's hard. Not only that, but I don't get the forms. We haven't done a survey to see what's going on because we just started this. Maybe we need to do that to find out what kind of compliance we're getting.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to move for approval.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Please vote. Thank you.
Thank you, directors.
Moving on to item number 16, page 145 on your agenda, internal audit section. Ms. Boroviano, reporting.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, board members. This is our first update regarding the status of the implementation of the recommendations we made during 2010. We made a total of 47 recommendations. Out of those, 24 have been implemented, 20 are in progress to be implemented, and 1 was superseded. Also, it's notable that we issued 5 audit reports with no recommendations. I'm going to try to do this in a little bit of maybe out of order what we have, because we have it in chronological by the date. I'm going to address the ones that pertain to local entity, competitives. All those recommendations have been done. There's a apologize, a couple of mistakes. We had the recommendation number 4 on page 146 on your board agenda, and also recommendation number 15 on page 148, and recommendation number 30 on page 150. There's the same. So they all should read implemented, and that refers to a form that was designed, internal audit designed the form dated March 31st, 2010. Also, regarding the local entity, the non-competitive, we have 5 recommendations from recommendation 38 through recommendation number 42, which is, I believe, on page 151 and 152. Those, I'm sorry, I think I made a mistake. 38 to 42, I'm sorry. And those recommendations, local entity, non-competitive, those are all in progress, and they are all depend on the RFP for non-competitive program.
Patty, can I have a question on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, on the non-competitive, these 5 recommendations would be put in place for moving forward on the non-competitive. That would make it better from an auditing standpoint if you had to go back and audit and make sure everything is correct.
Exactly.
Okay, well, I read them. I think that's all good. So just tighten everything up.
Now, the next I would like to address are our recommendation, starting recommendation number 11 through quite long to number 14. This refers to the CSPs, customer service proposal, and then we heard earlier today from Mr. Marcial, they will be moved under the PMO office. A little bit of history I would like to give to the board so you see where I'm going with this one. We did an audit on the CSPs back in 2005. We had a series of recommendations. We had quite a bit of problems back then. Some of you, Mr. Manville and Madam President, probably you remember. Mm-hmm. Then we went back in 2010, and in that period of time, the group that was working with the CSPs kind of was moved back and forth between energy and PMO and energy. However, between 2005 and 2010, when we did the audit back in May, we made a series of recommendations, and there are recommendation number 11 all the way down to number 14. And before we know about that, Energy Department responsible personnel supplied us with the progress of the implementation of those recommendations. And they did make quite a significant improvement. All the CSPs are, and the reporting, that was one of our main issue. And with the CSPs, because they were kept, some of them in spreadsheets, so on and so forth, they're all in the SAP system. And they are working, and I understand that they were actually had a draft, a final draft on the standard operating procedures. Now, as part of our internal controls, we are going to address CSPs because Moss Adams was one of the areas recommended us to address, so, and it's going to be one of the first one. What we're going to try to do is that we're going to take, and what I did today, as of this morning, I printed out some reports from the SAP system to get just a total of number of open CSPs, total of number of technically closed CSPs that are, almost done, and the report on aging, for example, how many CSPs we have that they are 12 months or more that they are not active. In that instance, we had 7 CSPs that they are, over 12 months old, that they're not active. So we're going to use this as benchmarking. Probably in another 6 or 7 months, internal audit with Moss Adams, we're going to do some spot checks. Also, we're going to run our controls to see. I don't know what's going to happen with the standard operating procedure. There's, like I said, a lot of being done is going to be between Mr. Marcial and staff from Energy Department. But at the minimum, we'll be able to compare of what happened, because what we did, we went back in 2005. I remember we had way over 1,000 CSPs open. Then in 2010, when I did the audit, if I remember correctly, they were about 700 or 800. As of this morning, for example, we had 383 open CSPs, and we had 236 technically closed CSPs. So we're going to use the numbers and the reports that we run as a benchmark, and we're going to make we're going to compare, and we're going to come back with a report to the board.
Good.
And that's all I had on the CSPs. And we have a few on inventory. They are all standard operating procedures, and they are policies and procedures updates. And so they are, at the time of we put together our report, they were in progress. Internal controls on revenue and billings, this is one of the areas that we started up last year as part of our internal controls, and that derived from the SOX compliance. And we have quite a few implemented out of the recommendation that we made. Is, you can see recommendation 22 through 27. We have 3 recommendations implemented, there are 3 in progress, and they all have to do, or most of them have to do with the standard operating procedure. And SOPs are very important, because as we're going to go back to check, we're going to use the standard operating procedures to see how they work as far as the controls go. And the next one is also on internal controls. It's about user access security. They are recommendation number 35 through 37. And at this point in time, they are all in progress. Will be at next update. Some of these should have been implemented, and we'll give you an update to see how that goes. There's, as you remember, the email that we talked about, it's some policies, so we'll see how many of those are going to be implemented. And last is the purchase card expense audit report. And on those, we had recommendation number 43 through 47. And all those recommendations to the date of this report have been implemented. Do you have any questions?
No, I'm concerned about the CSPs. I want to make sure that it looks like Energy did an excellent job of going through them and making sure that they
One of the problems we had that they were not all, the reporting in SAP was inadequate, to say the least. And at the last check we had, and actually our outside auditors, because that's what we started with, went to the responsible personnel and energy department, and they asked, just to see what they have. I think all projects are in SAP system. All the reporting of the status of the projects, as far financial status, as well as their are in the SAP system. And like I said, I ran a couple of quick reports this morning. I will run the other 3. There are about 5 reports I can run. There are another 3 that I will run tomorrow, and then we'll put it aside, and then we're just going to do benchmarking to see how it's going. I don't foresee any problems. They're the same people, the project managers and coordinators are the same people, the same staff. They just going to report to Angel rather than report to Mr. Escalera.
Okay. It'll be interesting to see if there's any difference or not. Yeah. Any comments or questions?
No, I'll move that we accept the recommendations made by the internal auditor for the update of 2010.
Second to your motion?
Second.
Please vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 17, page 153, transitional transmission cluster. Dr. Koch.
Madam President, board members, David Koch, Assistant General Manager for Energy. As you're aware, the district is preparing the transitional cluster study to interconnect renewable energy generators with the IID system for transmission to the surrounding balancing authorities. Part of this process encompasses environmental studies, acquisition of right-of-way, and a bid procurement on the ultimate cost of constructing these facilities. While we are waiting for the generators to sign the transmission service agreements and generation interconnection agreements, we would like authorization to begin these studies. The total cost of the study, including right-of-way acquisition, is about $8.5 million. The cost of the studies themselves is about $3.5 million. We would like to spend somewhere in the order of $400,000 while we're completing the studies, completing the interconnection agreements, to get started and gain 2 to 3 months in the process so that we fulfill our commitments to the generators of completing this project by December 31st, 2013.
Mr. Koch, it's my understanding that you need to move on this right away to be able to come for the generators to qualify for their stimulus package. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Any other comments? Not, please vote. Thank you. Moving on to item number 18, page 153.1, formation of Renewable Energy Transmission Task Force, and I will be the presenter. I asked for this item to be placed on the agenda because I think the time has come for a unified front in advancing IID's renewable energy transmission initiative and hastening the growth and development of this key sector of the regional economy. I believe that Director Hanks called for the establishment of such a task force roughly about a year ago. In retrospect, I think the district, and indeed the Imperial Valley, would be in a better competitive position today if the group had been formed when it was first proposed. What we need, and we need to be clear, and I think, okay, let me start again. And we need to be clear, I think, that this is a competition. It simply isn't enough to have a vast store of renewable resources right here in our own backyard and the untapped potential that goes along with it. To maximize this potential for the benefit of the people who live here, IID must act as a catalyst. That's why I think this board needs to authorize the interim general manager to work with Dr. Koch and Imperial County to build a task force that can move the process forward over the course of the next few months. IID has already taken a leadership role in working with generators to expand its transmission system and facilitate the movement of up to 1,388 megawatts of renewable energy for export to major urban load centers on the coast by 2013. Now we need to close the circle by collaborating with those same generators and the County of Imperial to remove any impediments to the successful build-out of that expansion plan and deliver on the promise of green energy in our region. So I would ask for support from this board to form this task force and give it to the interim general manager and let him run with it.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Please vote. Approved. Thank you. Moving on to item number 19. Mr. Kelly, did you have anything you want to say?
No, you already voted. Thank you.
Do you want to go back?
No, I don't get in the way of a vote. So It was 4-0, and I'm not going to quibble.
Cool. All right. Going on to item number 19, page 154, equipment purchase, dragline crane. That would be Mr. Curtis?
Good evening. Before you, you have the proposal to look at a crane and get your authorization to purchase this unit. The crane's located in, it says Jackson, Mississippi, and the cost to go out and do the inspection with some of our staff and also have an independent crane inspector look at it and he's with the National Crane Center out of Georgia, and have them do a federal inspection on it, and then we would negotiate the price with the crane dealer there and then arrange transportation.
Let me understand this. You'd like to hire a specialist to go and inspect the crane? Is that?
Yes, he's located right there in Jackson, Mississippi. Okay. This unit is actually located in Yazoo City, Mississippi, which is about 50 miles northwest of Jackson. But the inspector lives in Jackson, and he'd provide a truck and a mechanic and go there, and they'd open all the inspection covers up and look at all the winches and the gearboxes, and we would take one of our mechanics from our shop and also one of our operators out there to look the machine over.
Well, if you're going to hire the specialist, why do you need to send staff to Mississippi if you're hiring an expert to do that already?
It would just be a good practice to see if the machine is actually what it is.
Hands-on.
I mean, we could take his word on it, but I think it'd be good for us to go and visually inspect it ourselves as well.
And the person that you're going to send to inspect this crane, would it be someone that works with equipment that has the experience and knows what he's looking at and make sure that this is the right piece of equipment and it works?
Are you talking about the third-party inspector?
Well, whoever you're gonna send from staff from here.
You got a dragline operator who used to run one of these that you're going to send back
there? There you go.
Yes, we have 2 dragline operators in the heavy equipment pool. One of those gentlemen would go, and also one of our experienced mechanics from the heavy equipment shop would go.
Well, my concern is that we're going to be spending money to send our staff back to Mississippi, and I want to make sure that the staff that you send back to Mississippi are qualified to do the inspection, and they have the experience to make sure that we're spending our money wisely.
It's not a party.
No, well,
It's not a party.
I'm not saying, no, I just want to make sure that the folks you sent back are the right folks.
Well, I hand-picked them, so they're the best that we have.
Okay.
And what piece of equipment do we have that currently does this work for us? We don't have any equipment?
No, what we do is we have 6 long-reach hydraulic machines we take out of the weed management program and put on the canals. So that essentially puts us behind schedule on our weed management program. So this machine would be dedicated just to clean the All-American Canal and the 3 main canals in the valley.
And in the future life of it, 10, 15 years?
It's hard to say. I mean, you could, as long as you take care of it, this thing can probably last 15, 20 years.
And then is it this money in our budget, allocated in our current budget, or how do we handle that?
Yes, it was in the 2011 budget, and the equipment and the fleet budget. There was 800,000 in there. I think it was on page G12, line item 11, in the 2011 budget.
So the current budget that we have adopted had allocation of funds set aside for the purchase of this type of a piece of equipment?
Yes, it did.
We knew about the equipment back then when we were out doing the budget, or we were just hoping it would come on the market?
This piece of equipment?
Yeah.
No, we've been looking for a machine of this type, and they don't build these. They're not on the production line with the
a standard crane. You have to order these special, and they're anywhere from 1.5 to 2 years in production, and the cost is $1.8 to $2.6 million.
What are we using now to do this type of work?
We're using hydraulic excavators that we have, 6 of them. We pull them off.
They don't get the job done. They don't have the reach to take care of the big canals.
Yeah. They can't reach all the way across these big canals. They reach halfway across, and they leave a sand berm in the middle, and then the water velocities on the sides pick up, and they start scouring the sides of the canals out. So this thing will clean all the silt out of it.
Would this be able to pull out those tamarack trees that grow on the side, the banks?
This is a little big for that.
They have some good-sized trees. Have you been to the canals?
Yeah.
They have good-sized trees growing on the side of the canal.
But this machine's a little large they would take a pretty big bite.
Yeah.
Does the interim water manager have any comments about this need for this equipment?
For some reason, over the years, we went away from these clamshell crane systems that previous generations really depended on to clean out the center parts of the main canals. I'm not sure why, but we definitely need to get back to cleaning our large canals properly versus just digging around near the banks. We're doing damage to them that way.
So you recommend the purchase of this piece of equipment?
Absolutely. It's a key item.
This equipment would help our CSF capacity at the end of the All-American Canal out by Mount Signal?
It would help us be able to maintain large canals like that, yes.
Well, let's just hope that we keep this in-house and we don't sell it off and then contract out the work later on. Yes?
I got a couple of questions. Will we get sufficient hours on this to pay for itself instead of contracting?
This machine will be able to work every day during the year.
Okay, and then on work on the All-American Canal, can we look to the Bureau for any compensation or reimbursement for that work?
No, the contract on the All-American Canal, if Carlos or Jeff could correct me if I'm wrong, it's our responsibility to maintain the facilities.
Yes.
But we don't own it.
Yeah, right.
We get the best and we get the worst of everything on the AAC.
There is one. This machine will not work in the concrete line section. You do not want to use a drag line there. You use a dredge in the concrete line section, but this will work everywhere else.
I'm probably dating myself, but I remember when they used to use these.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, the reason, I know Mr. King's not here, but they wish they hadn't have gotten rid of the drag lines. They should have kept one. And so they found out that like you said, it leaves the sandbar in the middle because they can't make the reach. So I would make a motion that we approve purchase of this used drag line crane.
Is there a second to your motion?
Yeah, I'll second the motion. On the staff that's going to go look at it, I think it's important to have an operator to go, but probably someone that's a mechanic or something that.
Well, earlier I did say there was a mechanic from the heavy equipment shop going, and an operator, and I was going to go myself.
Okay.
Are you going to operate this crane?
No, I'm not.
So where are you going?
Because I got to negotiate the deal. Unless you have some other recommendations.
I don't. I've just wondered who's going.
Okay.
So the motion includes if it passes inspection, the motion we're going to be voting on today will afford them to make the choice to purchase the equipment.
Right.
You think you can negotiate to get it less?
Well, my hope is to get it for $50,000 less than it's listed for, with the freight included.
There we go.
Cool.
Free lunch.
Okay, please vote. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Moving on to item number 20, page 159 on the agenda, fourth quarter of 2010 Energy Risk Management Reports. Ms. Valenzuela, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
Good to see you.
Nice to see you too. Good evening, Madam President and Board of Directors. My name is Belen Valenzuela. I'm the Risk Manager. I'm here to give the fourth quarter update for 2010. let me see here. The energy risk management policy requires quarterly updates to the board on 6 different reports. One's a summary of the energy risk management meetings, which the Energy Risk Management Group met once during the 4th quarter on, I think it was November 29th. And they basically met to go over the 3rd quarter reports and to discuss 3 renewable contracts. The second report is a variance to actual power purchase natural gas expense to budget, which is be on the second slide on this. A summary of the power strategy sheet, which just to quickly remind the board what that is a 36-month projection of what the energy capacity and energy needs are and natural gas needs are for 36 months out. I have extra board presentation. Would you guys like the board presentation? Or I didn't know if you were looking for it in the packet, because this time it's not in the packet. Anyway,
do you want the board presentation?
No, I'm fine with it.
You're fine? Okay.
Just go on.
Okay. Anyways, and so also there's a summary of energy and natural gas portfolios and any transactions exceeding 36 months and a compliance report identifying a violation to the policy. Okay. The first is, I wanted to quickly go over the board, the purchase power and fuel variance report, which actually compares the actual budgeted to the actual expense. The year end at 12/31, the purchase power and natural gas actually came in at about $208 million compared to what was budgeted, $258. It's about It's about a 19% variance, which is largely due to market conditions and the forecast being quite a bit lower than what was expected. The load forecast was about 5% lower than budgeted, which is largely due to weather conditions. We had a very cool, actually, year in 2010. There was about, I think, 9% less cooling degree days than in prior years, which means that the average temperature that was below 65 degrees was quite a bit more than what has been in the past. Is there any questions?
No, keep on going.
Okay. This is that net short position, which pertains to that power strategy sheet, which is basically telling you where we are for the as far as how much natural gas we have procured and our energy needs compared to what we have forecasted. And as you can see, our summer months we are short, but now these positions does not include the Sun Peak solar contract, which is about 20 megawatts, and that is due to come online in April 2011. So with that, we would be fine for the summer of 2011. It also does not include the repowering of Unit 3, which is another 140 megawatts, which is supposed to come online in 2012, May of 2012. So Resource Planning has kind of decided not to include that in here, the repowering of Unit 3, until we get a little bit closer, just because, I mean, it's due to come online. The date has not slipped, but as they get closer, they want to watch it, because if it doesn't come on, then they will probably go out and buy a summer product, like a fixed price contract or something to cover that 140 megawatts. This gives you an idea of how much of the natural gas and energy budgeted is actually kind of fixed. And right now you've got about 58% budget certainty for the 2011 budget. Now this is just including your summer months. And the reason why I do that is those are the months that were most at risk. And for 2012, you've got about 46% budget certainty. And I broke it down a little bit further to show you out of that portfolio how much of it's coming from your natural gas going to your energy, to your plants. So Resource Planning has got about 67% of that in budget certainty on that for 2011, and in 2012 about 28%. Now I also kind of wanted to note, I didn't show it up on here, but it is in the board packet that they also did a trade in fourth quarter for 2013, which brought them up from 0 to 7%. So they bought a strip out there for the summer of 2013. So they've started also hedging for 2013.
Okay.
And the Yucca generation portfolio, there's nothing hedged yet, but they've got the gas line just about ready to come on. I think the operation date's March 27th is when it's supposed to come on. At that point, they're already got a plan in place. As we get close, they want to make sure that it's coming on at that time. And then they've got a plan to lock up some gas, but first for the summer of 11 and then also in 12. So, but they just want to make sure that 27th date's going to be an actual date.
And Belinda, that plan there for the Yucca plant, that should yield us some savings immediately as soon as we start?
Yes, which you will see that'll really help on the overall energy portfolio. You'll see that jump up from 58% probably to probably about in the 70s.
Dr. Koch, you reported this last week. I'm sorry, Balloon.
Yeah, no,
isn't this where we record a $3 million a year savings?
Current price, excuse me. Current prices. I just happened to see the invoice for what we paid for gas for January today, and the price was slightly. I believe it was $5 in round terms, $4.90 something. Currently, the price is running about $4, so we'd be saving somewhere in the order of $12,000 a day. We locked it in today, $12,000 a day. That's $360,000 a month. 12 months, $3.6 million. There'll be some monthly variations, but in rough terms, yes. But we do not want to purchase this until we have a firm in-service date, and it could slip by a day or two or three or four at this point. But we're working with Ms. Valenzuela to ensure that when the project comes online, we have the gas hedged, and you obviously are going to have to approve the deal because it exceeds all the risk management activities that were my signature limits.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and just to conclude, for the year in 2010, basically that, based on the market conditions and the current trades, that the 2010 purchase power and net fuel costs were well below the 2010 budgeted amount, which is according to policy. They've got, if they need to be within 5% of the budget, and they were, like I said, at 19% below the budgeted amount. So, and there was also no exceptions in the fourth quarter to report. So I also wanted to let the board know I'll be in the second quarter. I'll be here in the second quarter of 2011 to give the update for the first quarter of 2011.
Belinda, what does 19% equate out to in dollars?
About 50. It's about 50 million.
And could you go back to slide 4? Could you the next one, page 4. Could you go over a little more detail about this graph?
Okay, with this, you have your, for instance, let's take like July. That's usually the month that we peak. The blue chart is like your forecasted capacity requirements, which I think for 2011 are 1,023 megawatts. Go ahead, Dr. Koch.
I believe it's about 990 megawatts plus another
15%.
Plus 140 megawatts of required reserves.
Yes.
So approximately 1,140 megawatts.
So the blue's forecasted, and the green is the existing.
Is the existing, what we've got purchased to cover that, okay? And then what the red is, it tells you what the short is. So basically, for July, for instance, you were 30 megawatts short of what our forecast. I mean, we don't have that purchased yet. And the reason why it's not purchased yet is the Sun Peak solar plant is scheduled to come online April of 2011. So, and that's going to give you 20 megawatts. So if that comes on when it's supposed to, that would then be reduced at that point to 10 megawatts, which is not a big. So probably what you would see, even if Sun Peak does come on when it's supposed to be, they'll be short 10 megawatts in order to meet the Western Electric Council requirements, the 15% reserve. They'll probably go out and buy a 20, 25 megawatt call option or something just to be covered.
We're already doing that. I doubt seriously that Sun Peak will be on in April, May, or June. Hopefully July, but rather than take a chance with the WEC summer assessment, we'll go out and buy a 25 megawatt out of the money option. So buy something with perhaps a 13,000 heat rate. So we exercise it. The energy would be about $65. But that minimizes our capacity cost, and we can cover it with our real-time desk should we have it. But I have to get the capacity in place fairly shortly.
And the net short position is standard to expand as you move further out in the future?
Yes, sir. You can. Our requirements are going to change every time we update the model. So as we tweak our forecasting model, then we're going to be a little bit shorter or longer. Obviously, we prefer not to be particularly long because that's just a waste of capacity costs. Mm-hmm. But as Ms. Valenzuela pointed out, we don't have in July 2012 yet the 144 megawatts of El Centro 3. If we get into December, January, February of 2012 or 2011 or 2012, and we see that the generator is not going to be repowered in time, that has a very significant impact on us as we have to go out and purchase 150 megawatts. But I don't want to buy it at this time if I don't need it, nor do I want to wait too long if we see that there is a delay in the project for whatever reason. They find more asbestos at the site or something. So we're monitoring them and working very closely with Henrik, or the resource planning group is working closely with Henrik to make sure that we track. If the project comes online on time in March or April of 2012, we should not have any shortages in the summer of 2012 or 2013. I'm sorry, summer of 2012. By 2013, we are going to have additional resources, which we hope will be green resources.
So it's a calculated balancing act that you have to.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to waste money, nor do I want to take the chance of having sanctions from WEC for not meeting our balancing authority obligations.
Okay. Director Manville?
When did you say Sun Peak was going to come online?
Mr. Hoskins thinks that he should be on sometime in June, July, which is fairly close to the same time that the Nyland plant should be coming online.
Because I was out there Tuesday, and they're just moving dirt. They got a long ways to go.
We have a long way to go on our substation, so both of us are moving as quickly as we can.
It's going to be into the fall.
If so, then we'll have to buy 20 megawatts.
It's going to be a race between the panels and the substation.
They have... I don't remember if he said they have 3 or 5 container loads of panels there already. But once he gets going, once they get the ground level, he thinks they can put them up, and he thinks he'll beat our substation in. We're moving as quickly as we can on the substation, and I would prefer to have the substation up so that he can't point at me and say, I'm ready to go, where's my substation?
Are you
Yes,
done? May I have a motion to acknowledge?
I'll move that we board acknowledges the attached reports.
Is there a second to your motion?
I'll second the motion. No exceptions this time, huh?
No exceptions. It was kind of a quiet quarter.
Okay, please vote.
Dave's been pretty good today.
Yeah, he has.
Okay. All right.
Item number 21, annual review of energy risk management policy. Ms. Valenzuela.
Yes, the energy risk management policy in section 14 requires the board just to do to review and approve the policy on an annual basis. And so I just wanted to refresh the board's memory that it was the fourth quarter and the fourth quarter of 2009 and the first quarter of 2010 that we did a real thorough review over the policy. We had Risk Management Incorporated and Moss Adams, our financial auditors, review the policy, and they had some recommendations. We included in the policy. We brought it to the board in April, and you approved the policy back in April with those revisions in there. So currently, we don't have any recommendations, and so we would like the board to approve it's our recommendation they approve the policy. We're going to continue to keep an eye on the industry and make sure that our policy stays up to industry standards and any control issues are addressed.
To approve the current policy? Is there a second? Any further discussion? Please vote. Thank you. How is your newest baby doing?
Oh, great. She's already 6 months.
Already?
Yes. She's doing great. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 22, page 214. Interim general manager recruitment. Mr. DeVoy?
Good evening, Dan DeVoy, Manager of Human Resources and Loss Control. What we put together... Yes, lost control.
You've been found?
We put together a list of executive search firms for you. This is kind of a mix of companies that we have experience working with, as well as some companies we haven't seen before, but doing some research. These are companies that have kind of a national or global focus, and we thought they'd be worth taking a look at.
Which of these have you worked with?
If you go through this list, Alliance Resource Consulting and Bob Murray and Associates, the first two on the list, we are currently doing recruitments with them. CPS Executive Search that was the last one we used for our last general manager recruitment. That brought us Brian Brady. Hayhurst and Associates, I believe we used them when we hired Charlie Hoskin. I believe that's who we used at that time. Mike Hoff and Associates, we worked with them in the past to hire energy managers, and I believe we got high-level energy folks, executive level.
Which one is that?
Mike Hoff, Fry, and Prouse. At the time that we used them in the past, they were called Mike Hoff and Associates. But they're still based in Conifer, Colorado.
Who did they bring us to?
Glenn Steiger and I believe John Fedorovich.
That was a very good choice.
John Fedorovich as well. Ralph Anderson and Associates, we have not worked with them that I'm aware of here at the district, but I have worked with them in a general manager recruitment in the past. And they did a good job of staying on budget and staying on meeting timelines and things like that. The ones that we haven't worked with, CT Partners in Redwood Shores, Lucas Group in San Diego, MRI Network Management Recruiters, and TMS Executive Search. Those are ones we really just found doing some research on the internet and researching the companies. So we don't know a lot about them other than they are large national companies. The one that I would probably take off the list at the outset would be MRI Network Management Recruiters. They seem to be like a franchise kind of organization that has lots of locations. They just seem more like a network of recruiters as opposed to a recruiting firm.
Well, what's the process on this, Mr. DeVoy? Do we go with just one firm, or do we go with multiple firms?
We would probably hire one firm. We would get quotes from, I don't know that we necessarily have to get quotes from all of these firms, but we could, and get a sense of their price, their guarantees, process, and go over, make sure you're comfortable with process, and then we could make a recommendation from those firms. Or we could come and give you a short list out of the quotes and get your guidance on the selection.
I feel uncomfortable making a recommendation today because we don't have the full board here with us today. Director Sanchez is here.
I think they've made a recommendation here. I think you need to pick like 5 or 6 of these
Well,
and go out there and get a price, see what they're going to charge you.
Well, I'd like to see their portfolios, their terms, whether they just recommend people that have contracts with them or whether they receive compensation back from the person that's hired.
We could find that information out through getting some quotes, and we could bring those back to you. We could get them from all 10 if you'd like.
Well, you're going to eliminate one, you said already.
At the outset, I would. I'd eliminate that MRI network.
I went in and Googled governmentjobs.com, and there's 5 other California firms in California that are not on this list. But
correct. We just brought back a kind of a representative sample. We didn't do an exhaustive search.
But I mean, to me, what have you done in the past? Like when we looked you weren't here when they hired Mr. Hoskins, but
correct.
Were you here when Mr. Brady got hired?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So then what was the process that was used then?
Process was, well, once we got some quotes, brought back some recommendations, we selected CPS, then we had an initial meeting with the board to really work out process. But the process in general is they bring back basically the applicant pools are usually around 50 or so, and then they shortlist that, review the entire list with the board to narrow that list down for interviews.
I'm talking about the process of picking out which one of these firms we're going to end up using to search for the GM.
What I would do is get some quotes.
Yeah,
and bring those back to you, and we could go over.
Take 5 or 6 of these that you've worked with before and get quotes.
Okay.
I'd still want to see how they do it.
Understood. We can get that information through that process, I believe.
Are we comfortable with?
I'd like to see it before we get the quotes. I'd like to see that information before I go out to see. Personally, that's
true.
Right.
Are we comfortable with these quotes here, these entities, based on the results from the past?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking me. You looked like you were asking them. I apologize.
You know my answer to that.
Some yes, some no.
Yeah, I concur with Director Hanks. I also share his concerns. And I also would like to have the full board here but this will come back to the board, and so just do the research. And for the record, to me, time is not that important. I think with Mr. Kelly, we have a dedicated interim general manager who's doing an exceptional job of running the district. So to hurry up and go through this process is not something that I would like to do. I want to make sure we do it thoroughly and we do it in a competent manner so that the GM we hire is going to be a good fit for the IID. Time is not of the essence for me at this point.
Got number 4 on the consent. Take care of.
So you got your marching orders? Okay. Thank you, Mr. DeVoy.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 4 under consent. Request to lease 5 water graders from the water department. Who's going to take that?
Yeah.
Or is Mr. Curtis again?
I had a couple of questions on the graders. What was you gave this to us once, what was the limit on the amount of hours per month that we could use?
They're 160 hours a month.
60 a month.
Was that the same amount of hours limited on the last lease of equipment?
Yes, they're all pretty standard for whether it's a rental or a lease.
I know we had some discussion whether to go out for lease or look at buying them. And I thought there was going to be some information come back on that process of, I don't know, Matt, you could probably...
Yeah, we had the same kind of discussion about some of the cranes or excavators the last time we were looking at leasing some equipment, and we were concerned about the cost effectiveness of the lease because the lease limits the hours based on versus owning the equipment where we could utilize the equipment, especially under emergency conditions where we're operating excessive hours. And the last time we did the graders, it was 2 motor graders, and then now we're looking at doing 5, or have we done the 5 before? I'm new on the board here.
Okay, well these 5 are, they're at the end of their lease period. And the previous group of them, I think it was 3 years, Paul, wasn't it? I think it was a 3-year lease. So they're at the end of, they're just at the end of the contract, so we can...
In the previous 5, they were all-wheel drive, the other 5?
Yes, they were. Mm-hmm. Now, we had a demonstration here about 2 months ago, and we invited the board and the
It was on
general manager.
Central Main.
Yeah, on the Central Main.
No, I
You
just
didn't go?
emailed.
Or you went down there? Yeah, I went
there were-
down there, and Director
Yeah.
Hanks went down there.
And there were some growers that attended as well, some water users, and then we had all the operators demo, the 2 graders, and actually the final decision was we left it up to the operators because they're the ones that operate the equipment, and they felt that this machine far outperformed the competition.
Okay. Mr. Curtis, explain, for my benefit anyway, the benefit to lease and not to purchase these pieces of equipment.
Well, it's the reliability on the machine. It runs throughout its life that you have it here. It's fuel efficient. It meets the air quality standards. It's much more productive than an old machine that's broken down and in the shop. You give up. If you own a machine, you have more mechanics because they're in the shop more, or they're in the service station, or they need tire work. If you have a new machine, these machines virtually run for 3 years without going into the shop. They just wear out tires and batteries, and
So every 3 years you'll be
to renew them.
Renew them, and so you think that that's a better use of the
Well, we feel it is because these machines
cost-wise, it's better to lease
cost-wise
than to...
to lease them, and they're capable of doing things far superior than having a machine that's worn out. These machines can push material like a bulldozer and rip the ground, and I think the demonstration.
Are you going to Mississippi for these as well?
No, these
Or
here.
are you going to Imperial? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe we could go to Iowa if you'd like to go to Iowa.
No, I'm not going. I'm asking. No, this is an Imperial.
What's the cost of the lease increase for this time period based on what we did 3 years ago?
I don't have those numbers. I could get them for you, though, if you'd like to see them.
And then, in the last time we talked about this, the price of the all-wheel drive grader was basically the same as their conventional drive grader because there's excess equipment in their inventories at the time, or we had negotiated a better price for it.
On the previous lease, that's true.
On the previous lease,
right?
But we don't see what the cost or the price would be on the conventional grader. This is the deal before us. Is the all-wheel drive graders, all 5 of them, all or nothing.
Right.
I'll make a motion to approve the lease of the 5 replacement motor graders as presented to the board.
Is there a second to your motion? Second. Any further discussion? If not,
I'd like, are you sure, Mr. Curtis, on the hours, it was 160? I kept thinking it was like 120 for some reason. I had that stuck in my mind.
I believe it was 5 hours a day. It wasn't 8 hours a day.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, I think that's approximately correct.
Well, yeah, we're charged 100 hour. The machine's available to us 100 hours a month, but I think there is 160 hours available for us to operate. Isn't that correct, Sean?
Yeah, that's correct. We kind of take
hours that are on your guys' graders that are up for lease return right now are Caterpillars, and the hours, you guys are way under what the hours, you guys are a lot. You guys are under by probably 500 hours, I think. So you guys are actually running right. We give you guys a little more hours to try to watch and maintain that. You guys get a little more hours than actually what you guys actually use.
And is there a price increase if we go over the hours and what we rent?
We always work.
It's you guys and Gal, okay?
And
it runs about $30 an hour if we go over the allotted hours on the leases for this equipment.
And this type of leased equipment, especially by an agency like the IID that maintains it so well and takes care of it and actually runs it less hours than it was anticipated, it's very sought after in the used equipment market. Is that correct? I was just concerned that there wouldn't be perhaps a better deal for the IID out of this whole situation, since these pieces of equipment are only 3 years old. If we could, let's say, lease them back again, or purchase them back.
Yeah, you guys definitely on the bids. We give you guys a guaranteed price that at the end of the lease, if you guys wanted to, you guys could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any further discussion or questions? If not, please vote. Oh, shit. Verb.
Okay.
So that means you have to bring this back when we have a full board?
Means you don't get graders. The ditches stay dirty.
No, I would like to have the information that we asked for to come back.
Which is what, Director Hanks?
Well, I would like to see cost of the conventional as compared. It was my understanding, what you brought, that this price for the all-wheel grader was the same as the
rear wheel grader.
Yeah.
Conventional.
If that's not the case, I'd like to see what the difference is. Plus, I'd like to look at the hours, get some information back on the hours that we're using the machine. I know in the private sector, if you're only running it 5 hours a day, you're not ever going to pay for it. You know, that's my concern. And if we're only running them 5 hours a day and we're paying for 8 hours a day,
are we leasing too many?
Yeah, what?
Mr. Kelly, can you bring this back next week? And we'll try again with a full board, hopefully. Okay, any other business to discuss?
Move to adjourn.
Adjourn.